By Jack Bullock. When you look at conferences across the state, there isn't a more diverse or geographically widespread league than the Apollo. Apparently they named this grouping after the mythical Greek god Apollo. They should have named it after Hermes, the Greek god of motion and travel. Some of the road trips involved in this league have to cost each school a lot of money. One can picture the long bus rides with the singing of "On the Road, Again" by Willie Nelson, or perhaps 99 bottles of beer on the wall. Several of the round trips are 200 miles in duration. They have made mega nights part of the sports language, where both boys and girls teams play on the same night, which saves a trip. Besides the long excursions, the expansion of bringing in Salem and East Richland, this league is actually more competitive. Nearly every team in the league lost a good player to graduation last spring to graduation. Mount Zion won the Apollo last season under coach Jay Driscoll, going 21-7 overall, 13-1 in conference play. The Braves have a lot of good ones back, although they lost their best player from a year ago, Zach Lewis, who was Player of the Year in the Apollo. Salem rolled to a 21-10 mark overall, second place at 7-4 in the league. They, too, sent away their top cat and guard John Fisher. Andrew Schick scored 15 points per game for Charleston last season. Don Haddon, a guard for East Richland last season, was also a first-team Apollo pick. Both have left via graduation. Haddon was involved in a serious auto accident last June, but ABB is glad to report that he is doing well and on his way to recovery. Haddon is currently helping coach Rob Flanagan with his old team this season. While some teams have people missing, one school is happy to welcome back an old friend. Former Newton head coach Doug Mimosa returns to the Eagles bench after a few years away. He inherits some good players and one transfer that could put the club in the title chase. Robinson's struggles have continued since 2003, but the Maroons have a new gym to call home, so that should be worth a ratings bump for coach Bob Kaufman and co. Paris has also felt a slight fall off recently, but coach Josh Verosco is hoping to get things back running smoothly. Effingham has some kids back, but look middle of the pack to ABB. As for the Apollo race, Salem and Mount Zion appear to be the ones to beat, but Charleston, East Richland and Newton should have something to say about the finish. 1. Mount Zion. The Braves rate a slight edge here. Despite sending away a good player in Zach Lewis, the tough competition played last season helped coach Driscoll continue the excellence that is the current form of the program. Mark Yelovich is a 6'5" senior veteran who, according to Driscoll, is getting some college looks. Yelovich is a playmaker type that passes the ball well. Look for him to increase his 6 points, 2 rebounds and 3 assists a game this season. Jordan Grindstaff is next on the MTZ list, averaging 4 points a night in 2005-06. Grindstaff is a 6'2" junior who was the quarterback on the Braves' playoff qualifying football squad. Needing a good rebounder and a low-post scoring threat, the Braves will have Matt Scales, a 6'4" senior forward who averaged 3 points and 2 boards. In the backcourt, look for a pair of sophomore twins to begin a very good prep run this season. Colby and Caleb Long are 5'11" guards who Driscoll described as lightning quick. Quote, Caleb is more of a shooter and most likely will play a 2G, while brother Colby is the prototype PG. Both can pass and drive to the basket. Colby is also good from behind the arc. Tryouts, heartaches and wind sprints will decide the rest of the roster of Tribe. I think this will be a very interesting year, said Driscoll, a former backcourt player at Chicago Mount Carmel, where he started alongside Antoine Walker and Donovan McNabb. We'll be a young, but talented squad that needs more experience. We play in a very tough Decatur Eisenhower Thanksgiving tournament that will get us ready for the Apollo. Salem, Charleston and East Richland all have good kids back, so this will be a tough league to win. Quote, Outlook. This team played a lot of good teams along the way last season and will test them severely in 2006-07. Last year's competition showed up in the 1-loss record last season. They went 8-6 outside of the Apollo, but those games spurred on a 13-1 league run. Yelovich has been around a while and should be the team scorer this season. The starting 5 is probably the best in the league, but the bench is untested. Still, they should have enough to win the league, even if it is by a lesser margin this season. 2. Salem. After back-to-back 20-win seasons, the Salem Wildcats and coach John Bowles are having some fun while this streak lasts. They picked up some good wins last season, including a win over Mount Vernon in the first round of the Centralia Class A Regional. Coach Bulls lost a good guard in John Fisher, but some good kids return. 4 total seniors left B. E. Gum Gym last season, including T. C. Hargis, Brock Pontius and Nathan Terry. This season, the Wildcats have 2 returning starters with a Mutt and Jeff look. 6'9" senior Jacob Tate has gotten the attention of some colleges interested in his size and athletic ability. Tate, playing against some very good Class A and A teams, averaged 12 points, 8 rebounds and 3 blocked shots a game for the league runner-up last winter. On the other end of the M&J spectrum, 6'1" Daniel Knapp is a senior guard bringing in 8 points and 2 assists in from last season. 6'4" senior forward Kevin Williams helped out in the lane with 4 points and 6 rebounds last year. When Bulls looks for the other starters, he has at least 7 other kids waiting for a turn, mostly from the 2005-06 junior varsity squad. Corey Hill, a 6' senior guard, and 6'1" senior guard Travis Oglesby are the ones with the most JVPT. 2 other seniors, Jason Mann and Josh Lush, should be part of the Salem depth chart. Mann is a 6'1" guard while the 6'3" Lush will be in the front court. 3 juniors will be wanting a turn. 5'9" guard Levi Hester, 6'2" forward Dakota Tucker and 6'5" center Matt George should all get some playing time, especially to sub in the middle for Tate. We are trying for our third 20-win season in a row and our team has quite a bit of experience back from last season, said Coach Bulls, who has a 99-88 record in 8 years since he took over a program that had struggled quite a bit before his arrival. The conference is loaded again this season. Quote, Outlook. The revival of this program is a direct correlation of this coach's development of his young players in the past 8 seasons. Without Fisher, the Cats might take a few games to get rolling. However, they have enough to win 20 games again and will be near the front row of the Apollo title finish. 3. East Richland. Coach Rob Flanagan has been on a good roll with his Tigers. Since they dropped down to Class A for good 4 seasons ago, only East Richland has been right in the postseason mix. In fact, the first year of the recent class drop produced a Charleston supersectional appearance. In 16 years as a head coach, Flanagan has a 239-197 record counting stops at Sisney, Carterville and East Richland. This season, these Tigers are talented enough to challenge the ones on this list. In fact, the top 5 teams look to be on the same level, so the team that puts it all together at the right time will win the conference, and Coach Flanagan has the kids in the program that can do just that. But first, the Tigers will miss Apollo Conference first-team selection Don Haddon, who, as mentioned earlier, graduated last spring and was involved in an auto accident. He is better now and helping Coach Flanagan. Logan Weems, Isaac Beal and Andrew Capper were other seniors that have gone. However, the top Tiger back is also the tallest player in the Apollo and has steadily improved his game in college stock. Keen Tommen is a 6'11" junior who was second-team Apollo Conference. He put in 14.6 points a game for East Richland as a sophomore while also topping the lot with 8.5 rebounds. His shooting percentage of 69% for a second-year kid is very impressive. Last season he picked up 2 MVP awards, one at the Capital Classic on the Lawrenceville side and also at the Carmi Invitational Tournament, which the Tiger won over Mount Carmel in the title game. Tommen is an All-State candidate this season. Jared Street. Pierre is another returning player with time spent in the Flanagan varsity plan. He is a 5'10" senior guard who is a good shooter. Street. Pierre chipped in 8.6 points and 4.2 rebounds after missing half of the season with a rotator cuff injury. When healthy, he will be an asset for the Tigers in their hunt for the Apollo title. The third returning player with some numbers is John Kunstler, a 5'11" senior who added 3 points and 3 assists. According to Coach Flanagan, Street. Pierre is like a coach on the floor, while Kunstler is our defensive stopper. Quote, Point guard Tyler Miller is a 5'8" junior who is athletic. He came off the bench a lot for East Richland in 2005-06. Another starter will be 6'5" junior Keith Kermickle, a 3-point shooter and defender. He will have to help out Tommen in the defensive rebounding department. After those 5, it will be a free-for-all to see who gets minutes out of a long list of reserves. Practices should be interesting leading up to the season opener at the Lawrence County Capital Classic. Corey Dunn, a 6'2" junior, 6'4" junior Dylan Herman, 6'2" junior Jacob Wilson and 6'2" sophomore Brian Hake will be the frontcourt backups. Look for two youngsters to help out in the backcourt. 6'2" sophomore Charlie McDowell and 6'2" freshman Brandon Berry have a lot of potential. Flanagan says Berry is the most talented freshman he has had in his 9 seasons at East Richland. Despite the loss of an overachieving senior class, we feel like we have good building blocks for 2006-07, said Coach Flanagan, a Mount Vernon native who enters his 10th year at this school. Our team is built around Tommen and we have stability and leadership with St. Pierre and Kunzeler. If our young players continue to develop, and we improve defensively, we will be very competitive against a tough schedule. Quote, outlook. With Tommen returning and some experience in the backcourt, East Richland could win this conference and have a nice postseason trip. An injury-free season would help out a lot. The Tigers play enough good ones to keep things interesting. The Class A state tournament is the real goal here, and this team is deep enough to make a run at Peoria. 4. Charleston. The Trojans lost their top scorer from a year ago, but Coach Trevor Dowdy has a lot of size and experience coming into the 2006-07 season. Gone is Andrew Schick, 15. 2 points, 7 rebounds, along with other seniors Mike Peterlich, Dana Church and Wade Hennick from an 18-11 overall, 10-4 in the Apollo club that lost to bitter rival Effingham, 62-41 in the first round of the Mount Zion Class A Regional. 2 double-digit scoring threats return to start for Charleston. Matt Miller, 6'6" senior guard, pitched home 11. 2 points and ripped down 5. 2 rebounds. 6'3" senior forward Ross Hutchinson added 10. 2 G to go with 6. 9 G. Those two are the biggest returning weapons. But speaking of big, the Trojans have another tall kid named Trey Ryan, a 6'5" junior forward. The backcourt will need to step up, and 5'7" Nathan Zuniga will have some part of the setup. Zach Buxton is a 6'2" senior guard and will be the 5th starter. The projected first one off of the bench is 6'5" junior forward Jamel Johnson. We lost 4 of our top 6 players from last season, said Coach Dowdy, a Crab Orchard grad who has a 193-131 record in 12 seasons of coaching both boys and girls programs. We will be playing a lot of kids with very little varsity experience, which might hurt us some early in the season. Quote, outlook. Coach Al McGuire used to talk about college freshmen as no longer being rookies by the end of the season. The same can be said about inexperienced kids at the high school level by the time the calendar reaches February. Coach Dowdy will have this young group playing well by the time the games really count. They look to be a contender in the Apollo as long as they don't dig themselves too big of an early hole. 5. Newton. Coach Doug Mimoser has returned to coach Newton this season after a 4-year hiatus. In his 9 years coaching the Eagles from 1993-2002, he had a 135-105 mark. He did have some good teams, and the school is hoping he can rekindle some of the flame that got his teams annually in the Apollo championship chase. Newton has become quite a football school recently, but the Eagles aren't far from turning the basketball fortunes around. 2 starters are back from the Dave Gillingham team that went 7-18 and 3-11 in the Apollo. Clay Britton scored 13 points a game as a junior. This 5'10" guard will have to keep up the good work this season. Eric Shackman, a 6'3" senior, added 12 points a night. Those two will be needed once again in 2006-07. The big news in this conference is the transfer of Caleb Nepper from Mount Carmel to Newton. This kid is 6'7" and can play facing the basket. He was as adept at shooting 3-pointers as he was at driving to the basket last season while averaging double digits. 5'11" senior Brian Bierman and 6'2" senior Levi Richards didn't play basketball last season but are expected to play for Coach Mimoser this winter. I think we will be a very good team by the end of the season, said Coach Mimoser. We have our good athletes playing this year and the kids are excited about the season. It will take some time for the players to get adjusted to the new system, and we could be behind a bit in conditioning because most of the kids play football. Quote, outlook. Most people will think that the coaching change will help. If it gets more kids out, it will. Coach Mimoser knows the players and the talent is there for a run. Nepper is a good addition to an athletic team. They could, by the end of the season, be one of the top Class A teams in their area and also challenge in this conference race. 6. Effingham. The Flaming Hearts finished 7-7 in the Apollo last season and 14-13 overall under head coach Ron Reed. This is the sort of conference that isn't kind to teams that have down years. Effingham has some kids back from last season that hope to get down to the heart of the matter, winning the Apollo Conference title. One starter from last season returns for Coach Reed. Zach Scott is a 5'10" senior guard that was in the lineup for most of the season in 2005-06. Two senior letter winners are back with 6'2" Jim George and 6' Blake Wesselman. Both could end up starting when the season opens at the Effingham Street Anthony Thanksgiving Tournament. Steve Keller, a 6'2" guard forward, and 6'2" junior guard Logan Ellington are also back after good sophomore seasons. Look for a junior guard forward to step into a starting spot in either the backcourt or up front. 6'3" Lucas Hayes has some experience and was listed as a potential starter. The Effingham roster has Eric Casper and Jonathan Everett, both listed as 6'1" seniors. Ricardo Dalpra is a 5'9" senior guard and also listed as 5'10" junior Landon Arney. Two kids with some size, 6'4" juniors Jared Yeager and Trent Jensen will also wear the red and green. Outlook: the Hearts will probably finish in the bottom half of the 8-team league. Other than Scott, there isn't much experience back. They will play some early season games that will test the squad. If they can get off to a good start, they might end up with a winning record in 2006-07. 7. Paris. Coach Josh Verosco finally saw a state tourney winning streak come to a close. Since Paris dropped down to Class A in 1999-00, they won every regional, 6 that they played in. Until last season when they were ousted by Hudsonville Palestine at the Robinson Class A Regional. Taking advantage of a size advantage they held over schools in their area, the Tigers trampled a lot of small ones in those 6 consecutive sectional appearances. However, 2 consecutive losing seasons, including last year's 3-19 nightmare, 1-13 in the conference, and the Paris program is now working overtime in damage control. Coach Verosco has some skilled players returning to Ernie Eveland Gym this season that will want to win. The top 5 kids back for Paris have some substance and experience. Top scorer Mike Griffin is a 6'2" junior who averaged 10.2 points a game as a sophomore. Add 3 rebounds and 3 assists to his book. He had moved to Martinsville earlier in this school year but is back at Paris. His eligibility at this point is unknown. Chase Brinkley, a 6'1" sophomore, is a 7'1" G, and 3 G player from a year ago. Freshmen that get to play a lot of varsity usually turn out to be really good players later on. This could be the case with Brinkley. Chase Brinkley and Mike Griffin are both talented young players and the area should be seeing some nice games from these two in the next 2 or 3 years, Coach Verosco explained, talking about his 2 young guns. Pat Jeffries is a 6' senior who is 3rd on the returning list in points, with a 4.1 average. 6'3" senior Dustin Carrick tossed in a couple of points a game, as did Logan Hennis, a 6'4" senior. The good news is that the first 4 listed were starters last season. The bad news is that those 4 were starters that only managed to win 3 games. Paris must improve a great deal to win in a conference in which everyone ahead of them in the standings look to be at least as good as they were a year ago. We will be still young as a whole, but should be much more competitive night in and night out from a year ago, said Coach Verosco, the all-time leading scorer for Paris. If we can stay in every game until the end, we can start to learn to win close games over the course of the season and hopefully by the end of the year be playing our best basketball. Quote, Outlook: it isn't without reason that this group could surprise a team or 2 in this conference, especially at home. But it looks like it will be at least another learning year for Griffin and Brinkley before they are ready to climb Mount 500 feet. 8. Robinson. The Maroons haven't had much to say in the form of wins since a couple kids named Brooks and Schnicker left the building in 2003. Coach Gus Gillespie left that year, too, and so has most of the success. Under head coach Bob Kaufman, the Maroons are just 8-65, including a 3-21 overall record in 2005-06. Robinson tied Paris for the bottom spot with a 1-13 league slate. Coach Kaufman threw a lot of kids at the problem of winning last season and it didn't work immediately. But the experience gained won't hurt matters heading into 2006-07. 2 starters are back and a slew of letter winners will suit up. 6 of them are seniors, topped by 5'10" guard Marvin Washington. Trent Holt, a 5'10" senior, is another guard to join Washington in the backcourt. Jacob Carpenter, a 6'4" senior, and 6'3" senior Ben Miller represent the lone size on the Robinson roster. 6'1" Dustin Riendale and 6' Tommy Rice round out the senior pack. 1 junior 6' Logan Bramberly will also get his fair share of minutes. We have a great deal of experience returning with 6 players with varsity time, said Coach Kaufman. Defense is a key to our success this season. We are looking forward to playing in our new gym. Quote, Outlook. It is hard to come up with something good to say about a program that has won just 8 times in 3 years. One thing noticeable is that the Maroons always seem to pull an upset early in the season against either Marshall or one of the teams in their pool at the Lawrenceville Capital Classic. But then Robinson would go belly up like a beached whale, laying down the rest of the year. It looks like the athletes are at least there to become competitive this season. A turnaround of fortunes would make some people happy in Crawford Co. But anything more than single digits in wins would be wishful thinking by the Robinson faithful.